folks, and welcome to another edition of the Pilot Review Show. I am Captain Blade J52, and I am joined by one of my merry cohorts this week. We have our resident RP hologram, fresh off of a mobile emitter upgrade and recharge, Artie.
Hello.
So, the Wolf of Clan Timber has decided to go get fleet-ipped this evening, won't be joining us. We're also running a good bit behind, because, like I told you guys last time, my internet has been shaky due to these winter storms, and lo and behold, while I was working on the budget build, my internet decided to flip me the bird. And it crashed my Google Chrome, thus forcing me to restart from scratch. Which was not fun. And totally sucked butt. But what do you do? But anyways, there are a few little things we do want to get through for this week for you guys, so let's go ahead and get into our articles. First and foremost, we have our patch notes for the 31st. And hard to believe we're already on the second day of February, and that's almost gone.
I know, right?
Good lord. Ain't it? Where's this year going so far? But
let's not answer that.
yeah. But anyways, like I say, we got a few bits and pieces of notes. Some of the stuff that they do have is kind of significant. One of the big ones is the issue that was causing personal endeavors to initially appear as completed is supposed to have been patched out. In other words, if you first zoned in, your personal endeavors will show as completed until you switched maps, and then you could actually see their real status. Then another big one that I had seen, and this is for the Prolonged Engagement Torpedo, resolved an issue where the Photonic Cascade Torpedo 3-piece set bonus was calculating damage improperly by providing base damage instead of bonus damage. It now begins at 300% base damage and gains 10% bonus damage per 6 seconds, and the scaling now stops at 8 minutes. So that's basically going to mean that you're going to get an 800% bonus out of that, which is fairly significant. But any patch notes stand out in particular to you, good sir?
Let's see. Complete Iconian TFOs now correctly registers completion of TFO bug hunt at all difficulty levels. I know quite a few people that are having issues with that one, so I'm glad that one's fixed. Just resolved issues with involving hair and skin shaders. That's always good. And illusion of communication resolved an issue that caused players to spawn a new purified crystal after respawning post-defeat. The player had previously placed one on the map. So that's always although that kind of was a bit of an exploit a little bit, I guess. I'm glad that was fixed because it did kind of look like it was breaking the map itself, so that's good there.
Okay.
Besides that,
So yeah,
everything seems cut and dry for a third set of patch notes for the past 2 weeks.
Pretty much, it seems. But yeah, like I said, not a really big amount of patch notes in this one, but the ones that they do have are fairly significant. So yeah, for those of you that noticed that the Photonic Cascade Torpedo 3-piece and the Prolonged Engagement Torp weren't performing as they should have, now this is going to make this torpedo a heck of a lot nastier than what it was before. So this basically shifted that bonus from a Cat 1 boost to a Cat 2, which is what it was supposed to have been to start with. So yeah, pretty nasty torpedo.
Yeah.
But moving right along, we have our 9 years of STO. So those of you that have been keeping up with their Twitter, that have been keeping up with their other stuff, will notice they've been putting out some different infographics, and this is some of the infographics all in one place. But start with you, Sir Artie. What's some of your favorite stuff out of all this?
Well, personally, looking at the various milestones and whatnot throughout up to our current year, just looking at how many players are, or how many characters there are, like, that's a lot of characters. 7.3 million in command. Whew. A lot of characters. Other thing I actually enjoyed about this is actually looking at how many playable ships we have currently, and seeing that science vessels are actually being kind of, pushed aside a little bit, while we have more cruisers and escorts in comparison. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just basically just this entire, showing how many fleets, the amount of episodes. I mean, SAO has the current highest amount of Star Trek episodes than any of the series so far. Just passing two over Next Generation by 2 episodes.
That's insanity.
I know, right? On to currently over 40k active fleets and over about 430 star systems. That's a lot of stuff there. And I mean, if we're even looking at the milestones at the very bottom, like when everything was kicking off, you could see where everything started getting on the roll of where we are now. Like you could see the progression with it. It's really nice to see. So, yeah, there you go. On the right, you got all the various voice actors, all the way from Leonard Nimoy to Zachary Quinto, Chase Masterson, all the way down to Renee Ajibois and Jeffrey Combs. You got basically everyone here. Great. I'm just waiting. Suddenly, we have almost like an entire set crew. Like you have every single actor that reprised their role in one series. You know what I mean? That would be a thing.
I do have to say I was kind of surprised myself by some of these statistics. As far as the different types of captains, it doesn't surprise me that more people make tacticals than they do science and engineering. That really doesn't surprise me that much at all.
I feel like
Though
tacticals like very cut and dry, easy. Just strap some guns to your ship, pick up a rifle, and you just go out there and shoot them. Really, at least that's what it looks like for the most part.
Yep. Though I do have to say, I wasn't expecting that large of a disparity between the two. I really wasn't. Or between the three, I should say.
Yeah.
Because you've got 59% tactical, 22% engineering, and then 19% science. That's kind of shocking to me. But at the same time, kind of not, if that makes sense.
So does this mean on the 10th year around we need to boost up those numbers, equalize this shindig? Some more engineer and scientists out there.
Well, I'm not going to say no. Like I say, it's one of those things. It honestly surprised me. I was not expecting that. But yeah, when you think about it, like all the ships we've got in here now, like 559 playable ships. A lot of them cruisers and escorts, with a pretty healthy mix of science vessels in there. And to me, I'm kind of not surprised about the science vessels being the least of which, because honestly, for it, science is one of those things in the game that it takes a particular kind of mindset, I guess is the word I'm looking for, to play. It's not everybody's cup of tea because of how different it deals its damage compared to normal beam builds or something along those lines.
I think also what counts towards this is that there's so many variants that mix like a cruiser with the science ship or an escort with the science ship, because you got the science destroyers, which are actual escorts instead of science ships, and you got the intel science cruisers. So like the newer Cardassian intel cruiser. So you got a lot of those mixtures there. So they're not full-on science ships, but they would be considered, like the cruisers or the escorts. So that would make sense why there's more there than just plain science ship.
Yes, I could kind of see that argument. But, yeah, like we're saying, that's quite a bit of stuff here. I know especially the one that was really shocking to me was the active fleets. Having that many fleets active in-game. I figured a couple thousand, maybe 5,000, but 40? Nah. I never in a million years would have expected that kind of a number. But yeah, for those of you that are interested in this kind of stuff, like I say, this is a lot of the infographics, a lot of different stuff, and it is interesting to see these numbers. And I'm actually glad that the game seems to be growing for the most part, and seems to have a pretty healthily sized player base. I guess it's healthily a word, I guess. Thank you. But yeah, pretty healthy sized player base, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. But yeah. So that's our infographics. You can see, like I keep saying, some of the voice actors we have in game, all the different milestones. We'll have this in the description for you guys if you're curious and you want to check that out after the show. But moving along, we have we've been in the midst of actually 2 low-buy sales now, as well as an R&D ship promo that's going on with our duty officers. This one is going to be ending on the 4th, and we actually had, at the start of this, a day or two ago, we had a 50% off low-buy sale that caught people off guard. We're currently in the midst of I think it's a 20% off at the moment, but that's the other thing we're going to be getting to. But yeah, for this R&D promo, so you can get pretty much any of the past ships. If you drop a choice pack, you can get, you know, any of the 26th century dreads. If you're after a Universe, or a Durgoth Temporal Heavy Dreadnought, or maybe you fancy yourself a Valkus. Either way, some pretty good choices. You've got the Temporal Light Cruiser, which is our Tier 6, what do you call it? The Tier 6 Constitution. I could not words for some reason. And you've got your Talis for the Klingon, or not Klingons, Romulans. So, quite a bit of things there as far as ship variety, including my personal favorite, the Vaudoir Juggernaut, which I've been getting a lot of good mileage out of here. Yeah, so comments on some of these little, or these very expensive ships, good sir.
I just enjoy seeing how some of these ships actually work, like as their stats and whatnot. I just feel hard to get them sometimes, you know.
Yeah, I know. Some of my fleet mates, one in particular, he loves to give me a hard time because I usually drop multiple ships whenever I do these promos. Such as the other day, he's giving me a little bit of grief. I asked him, like, so how pissed are you going to be when I drop one of these ships right here? He's like, pretty pissed. So, I drop a ship. And then it's like, oh, don't worry, that probably won't happen again. And then, boom, there's the second one. Not that I would ever throw him under the bus or anything, but yes, I totally would. But, yeah. So if you're looking for maybe any specific duty officers, now's a good time to do it. And even if you don't get one of the choice boxes, you're still going to get yourself at least 10 low-buy, which is going to be very good. Yep, and he's flipping me off in chat, so that's the funny thing. But yeah, and like I say, in all seriousness, folks, go out there and maybe pick up some duty officer packs. Maybe you'll get lucky and pull a ship. If not, you're going to get yourself some low-buy. Either way, you're getting some pretty nice stuff. Speaking of, I think we can go ahead and segue into the sale that I mentioned. So, pretty much, this is going to be going until the 4th, so about 2 days later at the time of recording this. This will be that Monday. At 10 a.m. Pacific Time, the Gamma Quadrant, the Reinforcements, Fleet Support, Romulan Survivor, Delta Alliance, Delta Pack, Federation Pack, and Klingon Pack are all discounted by 20%, and we're still in the midst of a 20% off low-buy sale. So go out there and crack some of those packs, get yourself some good duty officers, and pick yourself up some low-buy gear at the same time. But speaking of duty officers, something we haven't had for a while is a junior officer weekend. And before anybody says anything, yes, I'm aware those dates are wrong and everything. The dates were mistakenly typed in there because I think this may have been not too long after we had a similar event. But whatever ended up happening, yeah. So this is actually supposed to end on the 4th, so this is going to be Monday. But, yeah. So, you're more versed with the duty officers, Artie, so why don't you tell them?
Alright, so basically for this, you go to your faction's, like, academy, so you have the Klingon Academy down on Kronos, or Starfleet Academy down on Earth, and you walk over to a console, pick up a debt, more or less, a newbie to this whole wide world of whatever faction that you're a part of, an NPC that will follow you around, and you will collect these energized particles that are just littered all across the map. And the cool thing about this is that it gives you kind of like a little puzzle that, you activate the particle, it comes up with a few dialogue options. It's from the get the particle, and you have to obtain these particles, and once you get to a certain amount, you can get 5 of these particles to get a human duty officer, 25 to get an uncommon, 50 for a rare, and 75 to get the top of a very rare. So that is a very nice way, a very interesting way of getting these interesting different duty officers. I'm not too sure which duty officers are actually available. I think it's randomized. I'm not too sure on that, but basically you just go around, pick up cadet, and start collecting these particles, and boom, you get basically you get them as a duty officer. Would be the idea.
Alrighty then. But yeah, that's one of the big things with these junior officer weekends. Usually a good way to get a lot of duty officer stuff done. Like Artie's saying, you can pick up some pretty nice offs out of this.
I believe the very rare, I think, is still a pretty nice exocomp duty officer. I believe that's which one it is. Not too sure.
I believe so, yes. But anyways, definitely check some of this stuff out. We hope you've been able to take advantage of some of these low buy sales that have been going on. Hopefully some of you all out there have got yourself some nice ships as well. And yeah, we'll have these links in the description for you guys. But coming up on our budget build segment of the evening, whatnot, this is one of the things that made us late. Surprise, surprise. It's not the pilot review show unless we have some kind of technical issue or something along those lines. I'm sure y'all are somewhat used to it by now, as much as that's a bad thing to say. But for tonight's ship, we have a Fleet Europa 1-key budget, and we wanted to take this to a pretty high degree, at least as far as we could, on a single key and use phasers as our budget build. Now, we did make a couple of assumptions that we might not ordinarily do, and this was in terms of what can you get for free for phasers, assuming you have access to some of the previous event ships, such as perhaps the Bajoran Interceptor, which we used a couple of items from, as well as our prolonged engagement set that we actually used from the weekend events. All of these are free items now that you can pick up in game. The prolonged set, whenever we have the weekend events that come by every so often, and then our now the Bajoran Interceptor from the Phoenix boxes whenever you are able to pick up one of those. So that's what we've got as far as some of the assumptions that we've made. Now for this particular ship, it's a 5-3 layout. It's one of our Discovery ships that came to game. This is the fleet version of the ship, so it's got a little bit upgraded stats and an extra console compared to the standard C-Store version. Now on the forward end of the ship, we have our Quantum Phase Beam Array. This is a nice budget phaser to pick up. It's going to drain the enemy shields a little bit, as well as heal you for a little bit. Then we also have our Prolonged Engagement Phaser. It starts out dealing slightly less damage than a standard beam will, but over time, and the longer you're in combat, the more it will ramp up, and the more damage it will actually be able to do for you. Now, this weapon in the middle is marked as just a standard photon torpedo launcher, very rare. Now, the reason that I'm using this is because at the moment, at the time of recording this, at the time of making the build, they don't yet have the prolonged engagement torpedo programmed into the builder. So that is one little thing I made a note of for you guys. But, anyways, moving along, we have our Terran Task Force Phaser Beam. This comes from our Tier 6 Terran rep. You know, we like to assume that by now people have gotten at least one character to Tier 6 on their reps, or have picked up a couple of Tier 6 reps by now. And in this instance, if you're looking for a half-decent budget phaser, then this is one you're going to want to consider. It's great to have. It's going to do some radiation damage for you. And generally, especially once you start approaching the high end, and once you've upgraded this thing, it's going to be pretty nasty. It's going to be pretty nasty. Then for our final weapon, we have one of our Crit D ×2 phaser beams that we picked up from the Everything Old is New mission. In terms of our aft weapons, we have another one of our Crit D ×2 phasers. Then we also have our biomolecular phaser turret and our Trilithium Omni. So that's what we have for our weapons. We'll take a look at some of these set bonuses in just a minute because they're going to be very integral to the build, very important parts of it. Now for our shields, our engines, our deflector, and our warp core, since we wanted to try to take this as far as we could in terms of phaser, you know, what's something that you can get on the cheap theoretically? What's some of the stuff that you can get very easily just by investing a little bit of dilithium, which dilithium is free to come by, typically. And we used our 4-piece Bajorn set. Our shields, our engines, deflector, and warp core. Now what makes this set so significant, we'll actually take a look at the set bonuses here on the warp core. Now you can see the warp core while we're here in space. It gives a little bit of engine power. It gives a bit of warp core efficiency and engine subsystem performance. And then it basically has an engines to shields mod baked into the warp core itself. It also reduces our cooldown on our transwarp a little bit. Now this is where it gets interesting, is the siphon field. Now this siphon field will basically zap power from the enemy, and it will also give you the same amount of power that it zaps. Then when we take a look at the 4-piece bonus, or the set bonuses, for our 2 set bonus, we're actually going to pick up a pretty sizable amount of Category 2, or not Category 2, but Category 1 phaser damage. I wish it was Cat 2. Yes, I know, a turret on a beamboat, there's actually a reason for that, good sir. And as whenever we get to the bridge officers, I'll explain that. But the bridge officers actually makes it viable. But for our 3-set bonus, we have our range modulation, which is essentially it's going to double the range on our energy siphoning field from 2 kilometers to 5. And the same thing with our retaliatory coronal ejection. This is going to double that to a 5 kilometers. Then on top of this, the 4-piece bonus, whenever we activate our energy siphoning field, it's now also going to debuff turn rate by 33%, resistance by 15%, and providing us with those same amount of bonuses. So it's a nice little bit extra that you're going to be picking up. Now, as far as our devices go, there's 3 devices you can use on the ship. We typically like to think of those as personal preference because we don't like assuming what devices people are going to use because there's so many choices out there. One of the ones that we actually have recommended quite a bit is the subspace field modulator. Now, this is going to give a pretty sizable defense bonus whenever you activate it, as well as the effects of a neutronium alloy armor. Now the downside is it does debuff you for a minus 400 protonic damage resist rating. So depending on who or what you're fighting, it can be a bit of a double-edged sword. So it is something to be made aware of. Then some other devices you might like are the energy amplifier batteries, Geminite hardpoints. Then go
A
ahead.
good free one that you can get is the deuterium burn, which is one of the devices from deuterium surplus, which is from one of the systems down at the bottom of the beta quadrant, over at the bottom left of the our map. Ferengi sends you to go do something. You can get quite a bit of supply in one go. And what it does is boost your speed and turn rate and whatnot quite a bit, as well as increases your defense.
I'd actually forgot about that one, good sir. That is a good catch.
Good free one.
But absolutely. Point being, you've got a lot of flexibility you can use with the devices to kind of supplement your ship a good bit. Now, as far as your consoles on this particular vessel, you've got 5 engineering, 3 science, and 3 tacticals. And for your engineering, we have our trillium deplating, which is going to give us a nice bit of defense, as well as a bit of shield capacity. It's basically a neutronium and a field generator slammed into one, and is a good budget console to have. We have our reinforced armaments. The real strength to this console is it's going to complete our 2-set bonus with the trilithium phaser, and it's also going to give us a nice bit of EPS. Now this particular console is actually supposed to be, I think I had wrote this down as our approaching agony console, and basically that's going to give some extra phaser damage as well as some other nice buffs. So that console is one of the new ones that came about. We didn't have this in the builder at the time of making the build, but that is something to be made aware of. Then we have our assimilated module, which is going to give us some crit chance and severity, as well as providing a little bit of control expertise. So that is something to kind of keep in mind, and slight bits of power, I believe, as well. Then, one of the other consoles we have, which can be obtained from the Bajoran Interceptor, if you were there for the event, or if you've picked it up from a Phoenix box, is the Domino. Now this is going to give a good bit of phaser damage, as well as some other nice benefits, namely a haste bonus. You can actually, there it is, you can see it gives some phaser damage and some accuracy. It gives a 20% or 25% firing cycle haste, 25% Cat 2 bonus, 25% recharge on buffs, 100% recharge speed for torpedoes, and if you defeat an enemy, you gain a 2%, or not 2%, but a 2-second duration increase that can stack up to 10 times. So you could potentially run this for a full 30 seconds, which is pretty nasty if you're able to get the full duration. Then for your science consoles, we have the Temporal Disentanglement Suite. This is going to give a bit of crit chance and severity based on your aux power. It's going to give a bit of shield capacity and a bit of shield damage resistance. So it kind of touches all 3 areas. We have our quantum phase converter, which is going to give us the 2-piece quantum phase, and this is basically going to function in this aspect as sort of extra free phaser damage. And then finally we have the Prolonged Engagement Power Dynamo. Good luck saying that 10 times fast. And this is another one of our prolonged engagement items. This is going to help round out our 3-piece. We'll take a look at that in just a second. Then finally for our tactical consoles, we have 2 phaser relays, and then finally we have our multi-conduit energy relay, which is going to round out our 2-piece set with our biomolecular turret. Now, getting into our set bonuses, since these are going to be very big parts of the build. Why are we calling on these specific set bonuses? Why do we want to use these specific items? For our trilithium phaser, the biggest thing that you're going to get from it is you're going to get some extra firing cycle haste for your weapons. And then, just by having the Omni and the console on your ship, the reinforced armaments, you're going to get a 5% firing cycle haste regardless, and a bit of flight speed for free. That's always going to be active, that's always going to be there. And that extra firing cycle haste is going to translate to a good chunk of damage. Then we have our quantum phase items, Our two-piece is basically going to double the potency of the quantum phase shield drain, and also double the potency of the torpedo heal under high yield. So, something to be made aware of. And then the 3 set, if you did want to potentially swap out the torpedo for, you can see it's a very heavy phaser attack that you're going to get. Now, the numbers are distorted a little bit because I don't actually have it on the ship, but just sitting in the inventory. Then, for our prolonged items. Now, this is the actual torpedo. This is what it would look like. Now, that bit of kinetic damage is going to be a bit higher as it goes on. It's going to give you a bit of firing cycle haste, maximum of 15 stacks, whenever you use the overclocked loaders thing there. And let's go ahead and right-click. Now, what is so important about these prolonged weapons is they start off doing a bit less damage than normal. But the longer you're in combat, the more they're going to build up, the more potent they're going to be. And this is the torpedo I was telling you guys about just a minute ago that is actually going to boost up and have an extra 800% damage. So you can see here what you've got is a 7.5% recharge time on BOF powers for the 2 set, and then for the 3 set, activating the power dynamo causes the next prolonged engagement torpedo launched to be a photonic cascade torpedo. Deals 300% base damage plus 10% bonus damage per 6 seconds of the combat's duration, up to 800% bonus damage at 8 minutes. So it can be pretty nasty. So that's some of what we've got for our set bonuses there. Now, the biggest thing with the Biomole turret is it's just going to be a straight Category 2, 7.5% bonus damage to Phaser, Disruptor, Tetrion, and Plasma, which is why we're going to have this on the ship. And we're going to take a quick look at our skills, and then we're going to show why we're actually using a Phaser turret in a mostly beam build. Now, for this particular skill setup, it's pretty much our standard setup that we use here on the show and everything. I'm not really going to go into details as to why we picked the certain points that we did. If you guys want us to do that in the near future, we'll put together a video for you guys and explain why we picked the certain points that we did, for those of you that like the more technical explanations. But for those of you that may just want to take a look at a build, this is what we have. There's 14 engineering, 14 science, 18 tactical points. You can see some of what we've done for Lieutenant. A little bit for Lieutenant Commander. Then the Commander rank. Captain. And finally, Admiral. For our specializations, we went with Intel Primary, Miracle Worker Secondary. This is going to give a bit of extra offensive power to the ship, while also giving it a little bit of healing to balance it out somewhat. Then taking a quick look at our traits. For our personal space traits, we have our beam training for free beam damage. Beam barrage is our R&D crafting trait. We always assume that you've leveled at least one crafting school to kind of help yourself get started with EC generation. In this case, we assume beams is the one you've chosen to level. Fleet coordinator for free damage based on how many people are in your party, 2% minimum, up to a 5% maximum. Grace under fire, which is the engineering career specific trait. If you are not an engineer, but you would still like to use this trait, or not an engineer, but still like to use the build, I should say. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Then swap out Grace under fire for your own career-specific trait, and you're good to go. Then we have Nanic Repair Matrix from the Midnight Mission, which is a nice little heal every so often. Elusive for free defensive value. Point Blank Shot from House Peg, which is going to give you a Category 2 damage increase the closer you are to the target, up to a certain maximum. Then we have Redirected Armor Plating, which whenever you are shot from the sides or behind, you get a damage resistance increase. And then finally we have our Projectile Training to buff up our projectile weapon just a little bit more. Starship traits. We have the best defense, which gives a hull healing effect along with our normal attack pattern effects. Predictive algorithms for a bit of damage increase and accuracy bonus from Intel. Going the extra mile. When we heal somebody while they're above 90%, we gain some temporary hit points. Then finally, we have reactive reconstruction. And for this particular build here, this is going to be very nice. When our health drops below 50%, it's going to heal us and our teammates for a pretty significant amount. So that's going to be a nice little oh crap, I'm about to die thing. For our space reputations, we have our advanced target systems for free severity, precision for free critical hit chance, our aux power offense for a bit of accuracy and category 2 damage boosting based on aux power. Then we have our magnified firepower, which is a straight category 2 bonus. Then for our active reputations, we have anti-time entanglement singularity, nice little AoE physical damage and slow that you can drop on enemies in space. Bimolecular shield generator, which you throw up this little green ball in space, and as long as you're inside that, it reduces the damage your shields take, as well as providing slight bits of regen and healing. Deploy sensor interference platform is an oh crap I'm gonna die type of thing. You can throw this little platform out, and it will taunt enemies to itself until it is either destroyed or the duration runs out, whichever of those two things happens first. And finally, quantum singularity manipulation. It's going to increase your science stats dramatically for a short time across the board, as well as provide a temporary cloak effect. If you want to get a little bit more bang for your buck out of your anti-time, throw some exotic buffs first, follow with quantum singularity manipulation, and then drop your anti-time on their head, and you will get a lot more bang for your buck that way. So that's what we have in terms of that stuff goes. Now we get into the bridge officers, and we see why we're using a turret on this build. And that is because this particular ship actually has a layout that is conducive to this type of build. And it's actually going to go fairly well for this build. You have a Lieutenant Universal, a Lieutenant Commander Tactical, a Commander Engineering, Ensign Engineering, and Lieutenant Commander Science/Command. Now, we'll start with our engineering stations first. For Commander Engineering, we have an emergency to Engines 1. This is going to give a little bit of extra power to our engines, let us get the heck out of Dodge quicker if we need to. We have the Warp Bubble, which is a free ability defensive-wise that we can pick up from, I believe it is, I think I wrote it down in the notes, can't remember the name of the mission off the top of my head. I'm having a slight brain fart there. But another power you could use here is Aux to Sith, if you like something like that, something that's got a little bit less of a cooldown. Then we have our emergency power to Weapons 3, which is going to be a nice damage increase, as well as extra power to our weapons. Then we have our reverse shield polarity 3, which is going to recharge our shields in a pinch based off of incoming damage. Then finally, we have our engineering team, which is going to heal our hull a bit, as well as purge viral matrix type effects. For our Lieutenant Commander Science/Command, this is another one that's easy to get at, and then we'll explain the tactical layout. For our Lieutenant Commander Science/Command, we have our Science Team 1. This is going to recharge our shields a bit and purge subnucleonic-based effects. We have our Hazard Emitters 2 for heal over time, as well as purging Borg plasma fires and a slight bit of damage resistance. Then, for the final power, just to use something from Command, we have the Suppression Barrage, which is going to lower incoming enemy damage by 20%, or can be swapped out for a Gravwell if one desires. Now we get to our tactical layout. Now you have the Lieutenant Commander Tactical, and we made our Lieutenant Universal into a tactical seat. Now this is where we pick up the ability to run the turret. Now for the Lieutenant Commander Tactical seat, we have a Tactical Team 1. This is going to redirect the shields. And then we have a attack pattern Delta. I actually meant to put that as a beta, but you can swap the attack patterns out if you want to. If you find yourself taking a lot of threat, you can use something like Delta to cheese it a little bit, or you can just roll with an attack pattern beta. Then for the fire at will 3, this is going to let us smack anything within range with our beams. Then for our Lieutenant Universal, we have our Torpedo Spread 1, which is going to take advantage of our torps. And then finally, to also take advantage of our turret that's going to be on the build, so it doesn't just sit there going pew, pew all the time, and can actually do a bit of damage, we have our Scatter Volley, which is going to let it smack most anything that's within its range. So, with this particular kind of build, it has the flexibility that it can use a turret. Ordinarily, unless we were using... Well, if we were using a different type of ship, ordinarily I wouldn't stick a turret on there like that. But in this particular case, it has the ability that it can benefit from it. So, that's some of the options that you do have for this particular build. But as far as the notes go, this is looking at about 3 days refinement time, assuming only 1 tune's refining to lithium per day. That's to get your assimilated module, your task force phaser, and your biomold turret. Out of our 4.1 million, we only spent 600K, so that leaves the rest to try to build up more EC or for other fun stuff. But thoughts on our build this evening, Sir Artie?
I quite like it. I was quite confused with the turret too until you explained it, but now it makes sense. All right. I have no qualms with this ship. It seems like a really good build to build upon. You could actually put, things into the upgrade stuff, like that. And it seems like it would still work out even on the high end when you get everything epiced out. Probably change things here or there a little bit, like one beam or another, or maybe change the turnout, but it seems like it'll work no problem altogether.
Alrighty then. But anyways, this is just one iteration of the build that we wanted to try. This is, what could we do if we wanted to push phasers at the budget level? And this is what we came up with. As far as the Bugs Corner goes this evening, we've been keeping an eye on some of the glitches and some of the bugs with the Terran outfit. We've passed that up the chain to the devs. Hopefully that'll get resolved pretty soon with some of the clipping, some of the color palettes I know they're aware of. And that's about really the major ones that I can put out there. And one thing I would say, as far as the other bug I mentioned a while back regarding the potential of the NPC torpedoes not scaling properly, I'm still looking for anybody that has any combat logs that may be able to demonstrate this to show that, hey, this is doing a lot more than what it's supposed to be. Always looking for that kind of stuff. Got any other bugs? We'll take those too. But anyways, guys, that's what we got for our show this week and everything. Our resident Artie is trying to come up with some new stuff for us.
Yep. New year, new roleplay stuff to yell about.
Yep, so while he's gathering some plans and some thoughts for you guys and everything, we'll give him a pass this week. This week, anyway. But in all seriousness, guys, like I say, we hope you've enjoyed the show this evening, whatnot. But on our way out the door, shout out to our good friends over at the Temporal Armada. Very cool bunch of people. Be sure to check those guys out as well. Shout out to our other good friends over at the Kurtang Pirate Radio. The party is there. And they've always got good music playing on there. Different variety of stuff. Not just strictly sci-fi, not just strictly old school. A bit of everything. But if you guys have any requests for budget builds, feel free to let us know. We do take requests. As you guys saw last week with our Ferengi Dime build that was requested by a good friend and viewer of ours. So if you're kind of curious about getting a budget build, let us know. Say, hey, this is the ship I've got, this is the level I'm at, it's more of a bare bones, or maybe if it's more of a mid-range, or you want to do as high-end as possible, as cheap as possible, whatever it is, let us know the ship and budget level, and we'll try to hook you up. If you think that your gear and your ship are in order, but it's just your piloting that needs a bit of work, submit a video to us of your piloting as it is in a mission. ISA is a great example of it, and we'll try to help you out and improve. I'll offer some tips and tricks on how to improve there, perhaps go on a couple of missions with you if need be. If you've got any bugs, feel free to let us know. We'll pass that up the chain to the developers. They don't like bugs any more than you or I do. And if you guys have any requests for the RP Corner, feel free to let Artie know. He does take requests, and he might just talk about your topic on air. But for now, folks, this is the Pilot Review Show, reminding you to have your tribbles spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.
See ya.